Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of Private and Listed. I'm talking today about the power of visual storytelling. And how this came to prominence with me was during COVID, a number of my clients would ring up and say, can you want to raise capital? It was obviously a difficult time. And how do you do that? And I thought to myself, what about a video? We're all time poor. And none of us really want to read 30, 40 page decks, investment memorandums or decks. And we might read a teaser, but the most important thing to do is to get somebody engaged in talking to you about your business and your growth. And I'm very excited today to introduce Christiaan Hart in Hong Kong. Christiaan Hart is a person I've known for quite a while. I've actually engaged Christiaan to do videos for some of my clients. But he's got a fantastic story. He was a professional tennis coach who had a passion for photography, and he's moved into full-time photography. So Christiaan, welcome to the show.
Hi Jamie, how you doing? Thank you very much for having me.
It's exciting, Christiaan. Could you tell the listeners some of your storyline from profession? How do you go from professional tennis coaching into having a beautiful studio in Hong Kong and photography and a video team?
Yeah, it's something actually I look back on quite regularly, and as you know, Hong Kong's a great place to be able to start careers, change careers, have different businesses, but I always had a passion for photography. Even as a young kid, I remember a family member taking my sister and I out for photography lessons, and it's always been a good outlet for me to explore and travel, and coming from a sporting background, I love shooting sport. But yeah, back to the tennis coaching days. I'm originally from Melbourne and was coaching professionally in Melbourne, and always wanted to venture to Asia as a career tennis coach. I was fortunate enough to get a job in Hong Kong with the Hong Kong Tennis Association back in 2005, developing the players, young players in Hong Kong, traveling with them, and then went to a private club in Hong Kong, which was a great opportunity. But tennis got to a point where it became for me, not so enjoyable anymore. I'm still very grateful for what it's done for me. Tennis got me to Hong Kong. We wouldn't be talking now if it wasn't for tennis. So I was at a bit of a crossroad with the tennis and didn't know, what I wanted to do next. But the photography kind of it spoke to me somehow. I was doing it as an amateur just for fun. And then when I was looking to change careers, I reached out to a lot of photographers in Hong Kong and was fortunate enough to meet one, Gary Tyson. He sort of opened the door for me to the professional side of photography. So in short, we met for a coffee. He gave me my first freelance job. We were lucky enough to go to Thailand and shoot motorbikes. And it went from there, basically.
So you're now doing photography for businesses, luxury items, and sport. Are there different ways of doing that across those? Is it a different skill set across those three different areas and other areas that you do? And did this guy teach you that, or have you learnt that on the go?
Yeah, a lot of it's been self-taught. I remember spending hours on YouTube, following other photographers, learning from them. Gary taught me the professional side, more so the business side, and some photography tips and tricks. But a lot of it's been self-taught, just through the passion of it. The business side of it is like any business, you have to learn the ins and outs. But a lot of it comes down to building the personal relationships, building those connections. A lot of the sports, shooting sports is very different to shooting, aviation or commercial jobs for brands or working with banks and law firms where we're doing portraits. But a lot of it comes back to learning about the people, building those relationships, having that personal touch.
When it comes to visual storytelling, which is what the business that you're involved in, do you need to get inside the brands or the businesses that you talk to and understand what they're trying to achieve when you're putting together either a photo shoot or a video in the case of some of the stuff that I'm talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I think, a lot of the times I'll get an email, a very basic email asking, first thing people ask is, how much are you charging? Look, for me, that's the wrong question already at the start. You need to understand the brand or the person you're working with, what they're trying to portray to their customers. Um, Again, it comes back to building that relationship. So I like to still get on the phone and talk to people, or go and meet for a coffee, go to their office, see their environment that they're working in. I feel these days it's very transactional. That a lot of people just want information very quick. For what we do, we need to understand, very in depth of what you're trying to show, what you want to portray, how you want to portray it. So for me, again, and I'll probably keep coming back to this a lot, it's about building that relationship with the person or the team or the company, and then that gives them continuity over time, rather than just doing one job here and there. It builds that long-term relationship, which I think helps in the long run give everyone a clearer picture and understanding of what you're trying to put. I hope that's kind of clear enough.
It is. I think that when somebody asks you first how much do you charge, they haven't really thought about what they want to do with you. If it comes down to money, that's the wrong
Yeah.
conversation. So I want to this on when I tell people get a short video done. I often say to people when you're walking along the street, you don't have long, you've got a couple of minutes, and the difference between two types of videos are, one, you look at it and you're moving along and you go, oh, that's quite good. And then all of a sudden you open another one and you look at it and you go, wow, that's cool. I've got to have that. And that's the one that people that are raising money for businesses or telling stories or journeys about their businesses need to present to people. How do you, when you engage with clients, how do you know or discuss with them, look, this is going to be compelling if we do it this way, and give them, people have fixed views in their minds about how they should represent their company, but you've talked to and photographed a lot of different businesses, a lot of different industries. How do you sort of talk to them and say, look, I think this might work a bit more? And the context is you want people to engage with your visual imagery, right? If it's not compelling, people just switch off and move on to something else in this world of social media. So how do you do that with clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. And again, it comes down to the personality, I think, of the client also, how much creative freedom they give you. Are they trying to micromanage what you do? Do they trust you? And I think it comes back to that initial, meeting, that first meeting, and building the trust to allow us to do what we do best. It also, for video especially, it comes down to obviously having enough content and strong content. And then the editing is a very important part of that. I think a lot of people don't give enough credit or allow, and that comes down to educating the client. We're always educating why we do it this way, why we should do it that way. You want to tell the story about the product or the brand or the person. So I might be rambling on here a little bit, but the editing side of it, if you don't have the content, the editor struggles to build that strong storyline. So you have to put enough time aside to get that content, and then the editor also has to have a clear image of what you're trying to put across. Does that answer that enough, you think, or
Yeah,
is
no,
it?
it definitely answers it. So let's talk about some of the brands and businesses that you've been involved with. So
Sure.
so we've talked about luxury brands, businesses, sport, and aviation. Just tell the listeners some of the businesses that you've been engaged in, and how you've helped them.
Yeah, so I think it's starting with the sports side. We do a fair bit of work with Rolex here, with golf, Hong Kong Tourism Board also with golf, some aviation clients. Heiko, we have a really good relationship with them. They're the aircraft maintenance company in Hong Kong and US. A few law firms we're working with, banks. Julius Baer used to do a fair bit of Formula E with them. HSBC. So it's a big, I think we're quite lucky in Hong Kong to be able to have that variety of clients. They're not always regular, but the brands we work with here are very diverse, and the projects are fun. That's what I like about it too. You're not doing the same thing every day.
And are you getting do people that engage you and use you for photography or video or the like? Do they refer you to other people, or do they try to keep that to themselves? How does the business continue to grow? Because I've watched it grow over a number of years. To your website's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It's and we've worked hard to get there too. It's not an easy space, but it's an interesting space. And I find in Hong Kong and maybe everywhere, you go through phases a little bit. We got known for doing a lot of yachts at one point here, so we're doing a lot of the Asia launches for new yachts coming in from Europe, and then that's gone into aviation sector. So we've been lucky to work with a few of the cargo airlines in Hong Kong. So I think you get known for doing certain things here. You get put in a bit of a corner sometimes, which is good and maybe not so good. But the wedding photographers, there's some super talented photographers here only doing weddings, but they're not getting possibly the commercial jobs or the corporate jobs. Where I don't advertise weddings, I don't really do them. If someone asks me personally, I will do it, but I find if you have to be quite specific on what you are pushing to prospective clients. It's kind of rare that the client will say no, we won't, we only want you, we won't push you to anyone else. But I mean, that's a good thing. But yeah, you get kind of known for doing specific, if you want to call it genres or topics here. Referral, as you know from your time in Hong Kong, word of mouth is still the best advertising, I think. Website obviously helps, LinkedIn helps long term, but I think at the end of the day, the word of mouth and building those relationships through networks in Hong Kong still is the best form of advertising.
What makes an image feel premium and credible rather than just being polished?
Good question. I think it's obviously the content, it's the framing of the image, it's good light, and again that comes back to the subjects, what you're shooting. If it's a portrait, we're trying to get the personality out of the person, and again that comes back to spending time with the people. If it's aviation, is it a cool angle? A lot of it comes back to good light. That's photography, right? You need good, strong light. Composition, thinking of creative angles, not just shooting from the standard height. Sometimes getting low gives a very different perspective to shooting high or from hip level. So it depends on the subject and the topic that you're shooting. Cars, you show motion. It's more dynamic. You never want to have steel wheels in a car. Just things like that, I think make a difference, and it's understanding the subjects that you're photographing. If you don't understand the sport, you can't anticipate what's potentially going to happen next. So understanding the subjects is definitely a key to it. So do research on the subject that you're shooting.
When I talk to people that want to raise capital or transition or sell their businesses, I often say to them, in regards to a video or any visual imagery, they've got the content. They just know they don't know about it. So most of them have been focused on their business for a long period of time and
Mm.
growing it. But they've actually all got quite a bit of content that they could supply to you to create a photo shoot or a video presentation. And I think they sometimes it needs to be unlocked by somebody and then say, go and get this done. And when you talk to new customers, new clients, do you go and look at the visuals that they've already got so you can add to those, or do you try to start again? Or I know you've got your own studio, so I'm sure a lot of the time you go to their place, but at other times you come in and talk to them in your studio. How do you go about putting a portfolio, whether it's a bunch of images, photography, or whether it's a video together?
Yeah, good question. So I'll study the current content they have online, websites. A lot of people come to us because they're wanting to refresh their brand or website, library of images database. So I had one last week in aviation again, and they kind of know what they want, but they don't know what they want. So we went through the website. It's a little bit outdated. So again, it's just doing the research, and then I think it always helps to come in with fresh eyes sometimes. A good example was with Heiko. We do a lot of corporate headshots with them in the office. They've got an amazing, hangar site at Hong Kong Airport, where the engineers are working the aircraft. And I kind of recommended, why don't we go into your environment that you're working in daily and use that as a backdrop rather than the standard kind of boring office shot. That's needed for the websites and it's needed for brochures, but use your environment that you're working in. I think sometimes people forget that, like you mentioned, it's you've got this amazing workplace with aircraft, so showcase what you do with your senior management. And some of the shots came out really well because it's different and it's giving a different perspective to viewers. Does that help?
Yeah, that does. That's a value add to a
Mm.
client, right? They want to hear your experiences, right? Because the more industries that you cross and the more photos, the more videos you make, the more experience you have. You know what works and what doesn't work. Just want to go back to earlier. You mentioned Rolex. Just correct me if I'm wrong, but I've got to imagine they would want a certain type of thing, and there would be a limited amount of flexibility from your end when you're doing your shoot. Am I right or wrong there?
Yeah, most of the work with Rolex has been with golf. So Hong Kong Golf Open, they're a major sponsor there, and also the Live Golf they're getting more involved in. So in that regard, it's a bit more content and sport coverage. They'll have their corporate setup, and then they'll also have some of their VIP clients playing in the Pro-Am. So that one's a bit more flexible. We've had some clients where they're very specific on what they want. It almost has to be kind of cut and copy of other brands that they like. But in general, I would say, we get a brief from the client, we tick those boxes, and then give those additional shots that, photographers see. We've all got a different view of things, right? So I might see something that I like, you'll see an angle that you like, another photographer will shoot it very different as well. But I think that's why they hire specific people for specific jobs, right? They like the style or the look. But yeah,
And how do you
Rolex.
work it out? You have a portfolio, right? So do you take a portfolio with you, or is it your website? Or because that's a good point. People shoot things in different ways. Our mind's eyes are all different, right? So
Mm.
when you get a call to go and see them, do you take the portfolio, or do you say what do you want to do, or how do you go from there?
Yeah, I have the website. I think most of the clients will come through that channel. They've seen the work, they like the style. Or they'll say, look, we like this, we don't like this. It has to be on this background, or you have to shoot it at this setting. A lot of the global brands have kind of guidelines that they like you to stick to. We had a job in Singapore last year with a large law firm. They had a very specific kind of outline of what they wanted. And that's also fantastic because then it gives us a very clear direction of what we can do and what we can't do. We'll always shoot the stuff that we see and provide that as an optional add-on. But I think it works very well both ways. You know, it's very helpful when the client knows exactly what they want and what they don't want. A lot of the times they don't know what they want. So that's where, you know, we can hopefully provide some professional eyes on the brief.
I think that's where you can add value to people, right? They want something to look better or more polished, and then you could give them advice on how to do that. Another, if I can just go back a little bit, in relation to people putting together short videos of, say, 60 to 90 seconds, they're inexpensive, right? I think people freeze. They think to themselves, I'm not doing it. They want to raise money for their business and grow it or scale it, or they might even want to sell it. But before you get somebody into reading, you know, tens of pages of documentation, a short video, in my experience, can be inexpensive and be quite compelling in what people see. So can you, from a person that does these things, sort of validate, you know, or other, that it is generally an inexpensive exercise relative to what people are trying to achieve?
Yeah, for sure. I think, and again, you're investing in yourself and your own business, aren't you? So, and people want to know who you are, what you do. I hate reading myself, so for me, a visual, you know, an image or a quick video, I can look at it. You know, people are on the phone every day now. You know, 24 hours a day. So those key messages and visuals, people then can clearly see the personality of the person or the company. I'm going around a bit in circles here, but I think, yeah, spend the money and the time, and like you say, it's not a huge outlay in the overall scheme of things because you're also building a library of images and videos that you can use later on. So why not have that database of stock images, not stock images from the internet, but stock images from your photographer or video team that you can go back on and you know, create new content as you go along.
Yeah, I think whether it's photography or videos, I said it earlier in the podcast, but you need to get people engaged to talk to you about your business. And
Yep.
we are all visual. It doesn't matter. You know, we all look at things for a very short period of time, and it either turns you on or it turns you off, right? And getting people to that engagement point is quite important when you're looking at you know, scaling a business or getting your message out to market about your business.
Mm. Yeah, it's and you look at some of the videos now that go viral. Um, Sometimes it's nothing to do with the actual business. It can be something really outrageous that gets the likes. You know, the ones that if you're just copying and pasting what everyone else is doing, you get lost. Um, So I'm always on the lookout for kind of, you know, new trends. It's hard to keep up because they're so fast, but I think for people listening, it's think of something slightly different and maybe something out of the box and something that you wouldn't normally potentially do if you're trying to get noticed. Yeah, like you said, it has to have an impact.
It's a good point, Christian, because a lot of businesses are in the same industries. They look the same and they operate
Mm.
the same, but they're quite often different because the founder or the owner of each business has got a different methodology. And visual portrayal of that could be done to stand out versus competitors, right? So like for like businesses, you can still make your business unique through visual representation.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just again, it's about being creative, I think, at the end of the day, and getting away from that kind of stale corporate style, you know. even if it is a law firm and I know, businesses have their guidelines and we have to stick within some of those lines, but yeah, try something different. You can always have the standard version plus an upbeat, funny one or something. It's yeah, for me, it's just trying to do different things, isn't it? And sometimes that can be very difficult as well. But that comes back to, finding the right person, photographer, videographer for your brand.
Okay, look, let's do this because it's great to talk to you. What what do you want to achieve? What's your uniqueness, and how can people contact you?
Good question. My uniqueness.
This is your
I'm
chance.
Australian.
What makes Christiaan Hart, unique in visual representation for businesses?
I think, yeah, we've all got different upbringings, we've all got different pathways. Mine's been in sport. That's given me a really good foundation for sports photography. Going into the commercial and corporate side, it comes back to what you're passionate about, and I'm very passionate about what I do. I love my work. I love traveling with the work. We do a lot of jobs around Asia and outside of Asia. Um, it's it's the uniqueness would be, I think you're always bringing your own personal touch to things, and like you mentioned, you're gaining experience from all these different clients you've worked with, different regions. We've shot motorsport, rugby, tennis, corporate, aviation. So bringing all that into, I guess, one umbrella, that really helps with other jobs. And that experience from myself plus the team I use around Asia, we don't have a massive team, but I think from the experience that we all have can really benefit future clients and current clients. So yeah, I'm based in Hong Kong. The website is just christiaanhart.com. You can reach out there, and it'd be great to talk to anyone who's looking for future coverage.
Yeah, look, I'm grateful for your time, and it's just I hope the listeners get something out of it because it's it's people often overlook photography and videos as something that can enhance their business or grow their business. If it's one thing that you could say to people is please show me a visual representation of your business because people understand the nuts and bolts. And you mentioned earlier, whether it's a law firm or whether it's aviation or whether it's fast cars or whether it's fashion or whether it's rugby. But if you can see a visual representation of it, we all turn the television on, we all turn social media on all the time. It plays a much greater impact than it did when we were all growing up, and I'm certainly a lot older than you. But and I'm operating in this baby boomer business spectrum, which is sort of 62 to 80-year-olds that are transitioning and selling businesses. But I really think it's an important potential aspect for them to represent themselves and in their businesses. And look, as I said earlier, Christiaan, I've engaged you to do things for businesses that I've been involved in, and it's first class. And I'm grateful that you've come on here to talk about how you do things and the types of clients that you've got, and hopefully some listeners have got things out of that.
Yeah, thank you very much for the time. It's been great to do, and I hope what I've shared helps some people. I think if you are looking to engage in a photographer or videographer, spend the time with that person, get to know them. It's like anything, build that relationship, know what you want, know what they can provide.
It's pretty personal,
And
right? It's pretty personal when you do
yeah,
that.
very much. I think, and in, as you've probably seen as well in what you do, if the first question is just what do you charge, they're already asking the wrong questions. Don't be so gun ho about just price, because just pushing the record button, there's a lot more to it than that. So really learn about what that service provider is providing, what they don't provide, and build that relationship with them, because That's how the world works, isn't it? I think these days people, like you said, they're time poor, but getting to know the person you're working with is valuable.
Look, everybody's got an ego too. People want their businesses represented in the right way, right? And you can sit at a dinner table and talk about it as much as you like, or you can put paper in front of people. Most people will delete emails unread or do whatever. But if you put a video or pictures in front of them, they go, okay, let's go. I want to do that. So,
Yeah,
so I think
exactly.
that's
And it
come
lasts
through
forever,
clearly.
doesn't it?
I think that's come through clearly in this discussion. And look, again, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you, listeners, for listening to episode 10 with Christian. And as he said, you can get Christian at christiaanhart.com. And he's a wonderful photographer and video maker. And thank you for listening to Private and Listed. And you can get me on heyjamie at privateandlisted.com. And I look forward to future episodes. Thank you again, Christian.
Thanks very much, Jamie.